Okay, let's dig into this. We're talking cognitive fog today, something, a lot of families deal with as people age.
All right. But we're taking a bit of a different path here.
Yeah, instead of just memory failure, we're looking at it through a different lens, aren't we? Sort of behavioral science,
Yep.
applied behavior analysis.
Exactly, ABA. And, our sources give us a really potent example to start with, Mrs. T.
Ah, yes, Mrs. T calling her daughter really upset.
Deeply distressed, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely convinced she left her front door wide open. The fear was palpable, totally real for her.
And the doctor said,
Just stress, simple anxiety. But her daughter, naturally, was thinking, oh no, is this dementia setting in?
which is where most minds would go, I think. But the behavioral folks, they saw something else entirely.
They did. They described it as a behavioral system starting to crumble. Not necessarily the mind itself, just breaking down.
Okay, that's a huge shift, a crumbling system.
It is. And it means when older adults start, checking the locks over and over or rereading simple lists or asking, did I turn off the stove again?
It's not always memory.
Often it's a sign that they're environmental taskmasters. Those little cues in our surroundings that normally guide us without us even thinking.
Like seeing the light switch reminds you to flip it.
Exactly. Those cues have just gone quiet. They're not giving reliable feedback anymore.
So, right, our deep dive today is really about getting under the hood of that system breakdown. And more importantly, how ABA can offer some practical, even compassionate ways to bring back that clarity, that confidence.
Yeah, confidence in that feeling of security. We want to understand what happens when the fog isn't just fog, but maybe a broken feedback loop.
Okay. So sticking with this behavioral perspective, it's less about diagnosing a disease and more about seeing what?
Right,
The
yeah.
disruption in patterns.
Precisely. Patterns that used to run smoothly, automatically, for years, maybe decades, we're shifting focus from trying to guess what's happening inside the head to looking at the observable routine, the actual doing.
Which leads us straight to that core ABA idea, right? The ABC loop. Antecedent, behavior, consequence. Can you walk us through how that loop starts to, well, break down in these situations?
Sure. So you've got the three parts. A is the antecedent, the cue from the environment. Maybe seeing the door handle as you're about to leave.
Okay, the trigger.
Right. Then B is the behavior, the action itself, turning the key, locking the door.
Simple enough.
And C is the consequence. That's the immediate feedback. For locking a door, it should be that feeling of, okay, done, safe, that sense of completion.
So where does it typically go wrong? Is it the behavior, the B part? They just forget to lock it?
Sometimes, but often the real problem's at the start or the end. The antecedent, the cue, might fade. Maybe poor lighting or just changes in vision make the handle less obvious.
Yeah.
But a really common failure point, and maybe the most disruptive one, is the consequence, the C. The person does lock the door.
They do the action?
Yes. But that internal click, that feeling of, okay, it's locked, I'm safe, it just doesn't register. It doesn't land.
Ah, so they don't get that closure.
Exactly. And because that final, yep, done signal is missing, what happens?
They have to check again and again.
Right. The brain keeps demanding proof the task is complete because the internal confirmation failed. It looks like anxiety, and it feels like anxiety, but it's fundamentally a search for a missing signal, a missing link in that routine chain.
That makes so much sense. It's a behavioral signal.
It is. And the researchers we looked at, Sharp, Phillips, and Brand, who work in behavioral gerontology, they point this out. They say ABA is well-placed to assess and provide solutions for these issues.
Why ABA specifically? Because it doesn't rely on guessing internal states. It focuses on what you can see and measure, the behavior and the environment around it. So you can find these sort of mechanical fixes for what feel like purely cognitive problems. That focus on context, on the environment, feels key.
Okay, let's make this really practical for listeners. If someone is supporting an older parent or relative, what are the specific signs they should look for? Signs that suggest it's this system breaking down, not just occasional forgetfulness.
Yeah, good question. You're looking for patterns that signal lost confidence in routines. Things like repeated questions about safety. Is the stove off? Did I take my pills? Often asked with real anxiety.
Okay, repeated safety questions. What else?
Checking things multiple times in a short period, like locking the door, walking away, then coming right back to check it again.
The checking loop we just talked about.
Exactly. Also, forgetting really basic known steps in a sequence. Maybe they always put their keys in the bolt on the door, but now they turn off the lights and just wander off without them.
Little breaks in a familiar chain.
Right. And then maybe a growing reluctance or even real fear about leaving the house. because navigating the outside world feels too unpredictable. And just generally, more anxiety around making mistakes or feeling uncertain about daily tasks. And the crucial reframe here is these aren't like signs of weakness or someone not trying hard enough. Absolutely not. They're signals. SOS flares, really, from a daily structure that's become unreliable. It needs rebuilding.
Okay, but here's the pushback I imagine some listeners might have. If we start using checklists or smart locks with lights, aren't we just creating a crutch? Isn't it dependence, not independence?
That's a really common concern and a fair one. But I argue we're not building a crutch, we're building a bridge to functional independence.
Okay, explain that. A bridge.
Look, the goal isn't necessarily to force the brain to perfectly recall every single micro step of locking the door, especially if that's becoming harder. The goal is to enable the person to successfully complete the routine and live without that constant gnawing anxiety.
So the dignity comes from the success, from feeling safe and capable, not from doing it purely from memory.
Precisely. ABA works by shaping the environment so the behavior can succeed again. It adapts the world to the person, rather than just demanding the person adapt back. It restores confidence through environmental support.
All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts. How does ABA actually do that? What's in the toolkit for rebuilding these routines? You mentioned 4 mechanisms. Yeah, 4 key ways we can use everyday design. First up, visual cues. Think simple but effective, like a Post-it note.
Could be, but maybe more integrated, like putting a really brightly colored bowl right by the door, only for keys. High contrast, impossible to miss, or a small, clear lock sticker right at eye level on the door frame.
Making the cue unavoidable.
Exactly. And with tech, like a smart lock, make sure the signal for locked is super clear. A bright green light, maybe a distinct click, or even a gentle voice confirmation like door locked. That clear sensory feedback becomes the new, reliable trigger to move on.
Okay, that tackles the immediate trigger. But what about those multi-step routines? Like getting ready for bed lock door, check stove, lights off, meds. That seems overwhelming.
Yeah, those complex chains are often where things really fall apart. That's where the second tool, chaining tasks, comes in.
Breaking it down.
Exactly, but physically breaking it down. Instead of one big mental checklist called bedtime, which feels huge and stressful, you create, say, distinct steps or stations. Completing step 1, baby rinsing the last dish and putting in the dishwasher, becomes the direct physical cue to start step 2, wiping down the counter.
Ah, so finishing one action physically leads you to the next.
Right. Each step completed is a small win. It lowers the anxiety about the whole big routine. The environment itself provides the sequence, taking the load off working memory.
Makes sense. Okay, number 3 was reinforcement. Now that word can sound a bit clinical. How does reinforcement work here? It's not just saying good job, right?
No, definitely not. Verbal praise is usually too delayed to be effective behavioral reinforcement. Here, reinforcement is immediate, functional feedback tied directly to the behavior you want to solidify.
So like the smart lock example.
Perfect example. The door locks, and immediately there's that satisfying loud click or the bright green light pops on. That is the reinforcement.
The sensory feedback itself.
Yes, it tells the nervous system instantly and clearly, task complete, success, you can stop checking now. That immediate feedback builds confidence way faster than relying on that fuzzy, often missing internal sense of completion.
Okay, clear cues, chaining tasks, immediate reinforcement. What's the last one? The environmental taskmaster. Sounds a bit intense. Yeah, the name's a bit dramatic maybe. But the concept is simple. Let the environment be the reliable guide. While guided by our environment constantly, good design just makes that guidance clear and intentional. So it's not like Big Brother watching.
Not at all. An environmental taskmaster is just a clear, consistent element. It could be a checklist, sure, printed large and placed right where the routine happens, or it could be maintaining a really tidy, defined space, like the kitchen counter must be completely clear before bed.
How does a clear counter act as a taskmaster?
The visual state of the counter, clear and tidy, serves as the final confirmation cue. Ah, the counter looks like this, so all the kitchen tasks must be done. The person learns to trust the state of the environment as proof, freeing up their mental energy.
Okay, I get it. The environment holds the information reliably. Let's loop back to Mrs. T. How did her daughter actually use these ideas? What did she change?
It was beautifully subtle, actually. For the door locking issue, she installed one of those smart locks. Big bright light when it was secured. That's the visual cue and the reinforcement right there.
Okay.
She also put a small, simple note right by the door handle that just said, locked and safe. That was the environmental taskmaster immediate external confirmation.
Simple but clear.
And for the evening routine, which was getting a bit scattered, She just put a short, physical checklist on the bedside table. Not complicated, just the key steps. That addressed the chaining.
And did it work? What happened with those distressed phone calls?
Stopped. Within about a week, the late night, panicked calls just stopped.
Yeah.
Visitees started sleeping better, reported feeling much less anxious overall.
Wow. Not because her memory suddenly got sharper overnight.
No, but because her environment became clearer, more predictable, more trustworthy, it gave her, as the source material puts it, confidence without confusion. That's the power of designing the environment for success.
It's a powerful outcome. But let's clarify something important for listeners. We see these signs, we try these ABA approaches. Does this mean we ignore potential medical issues like dementia?
Absolutely not. That's a critical distinction. Cognitive fog isn't one single thing. It can come from stress, like Mrs. T's doctor initially thought. It could be medication side effects, sleep problems, depression, nutritional issues, or yes, it could be an early sign of dementia or another neurological condition.
So how does the ABA approach help figure that out?
It acts as a really useful assessment tool. If you make these targeted environmental changes, add clear cues, break down tasks, and the problematic behaviors, the anxiety, the checking, if they significantly improve or resolve.
Then the issue is likely behavioral or environmental, not necessarily progressive cognitive decline.
That's often the case, yes. But if the symptoms persist, or even worsen, despite having a really clear, supportive environment with good cues, that strongly suggests further medical and neurological investigation is needed. ABA helps clarify the picture.
And either way, it sounds like a major benefit is just reducing the day-to-day anxiety, regardless of the underlying cause.
Oh, hugely. Uncertainty is exhausting and anxiety-provoking. Predictability, supported by clear environmental cues, is one of the best antidotes. When the system works, when you trust the cues, you don't need to worry constantly about making a mistake with basic safety things. That frees up so much mental energy.
Okay, so for someone listening right now, maybe a caregiver or family member who's seeing some of these struggles, how do they go from just noticing the frustration to actually doing something empowering? What's the first step?
Become a bit of a behavioral detective. Start observing closely, but non-judgmentally. Keep a little log, maybe. When does the confusion seem worst? First thing in the morning, late at night, after a busy or stressful day.
Look for timing patterns.
Exactly. And note which specific tasks trigger the repetitive checking or the anxiety. Is it always the stove? Always the medications? Always locking the door?
Pinpoint the trouble spots.
Right.
And then the crucial question for each trouble spot, look at the routine, look at the environment, and ask, what cue is missing here? Or what cue is unclear? Is the pill box hidden in a cluttered drawer? Is the off position on the stove dial hard to see? Is the click of the lock too quiet? Find the weak link in the chain.
Yes. Because once you identify that missing or unclear cue, you can start thinking about how to redesign that little piece of the environment to make it clear, reliable, and confidence-building. Observation leads to targeted solutions.
So it really brings us back to that core idea, that question, did I lock the door? It's more than just a memory blip.
Much more. It's often a plea for reassurance, a sign that a once reliable routine has lost its rhythm, its dependable feedback.
And ABA offers a way to rebuild that rhythm, not by drilling memory, but by redesigning the environment, one cue, one behavior, one moment of calm at a time.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from fixing the person to fixing the context around the person, allowing them to succeed.
So wrapping this up, what's the bigger implication here? What does this tell us about how we should think about safety and independence as we age?
I think the most provocative thought really is that safety and independence in later life might not depend only on how sharp our memory stays. It might depend just as much, maybe even more, on living in a world designed to help us succeed. An environment that provides clear cues, supports routines, and reduces the need for constant mental vigilance.
So the focus shifts from managing decline
To designing for support, creating spaces and systems that feel predictable, reliable, and fundamentally make aging feel supported, not scary.
Yeah.
That's a powerful shift in perspective.